r/AskReddit. Pisces 2003 says, "What's the dumbest thing someone accused you of without any evidence?" Remote_person 50 to 80 says, "I had a coworker accuse me of being gay. I was married, with 5 kids. He was single, living with a male roommate." Pisces 2003 says, "Sounds like they're insecure about their sexuality." U-Haul 26 says, "He wasn't accusing. He was inquiring." Pair_Jan2 says, "An ex accused me of cheating on him with my best friend. My best friend is a gay woman. I'm 99.99% sure I'm straight. He knew this. When I asked him why he thought this, he couldn't give me a single reason. Other than one time I hung out with her and took a long time to respond to his messages. Ironically, he was cheating on me with several different women." Golden_Flea says, "It's not ironic, it's projecting." Zippered says, "That shit is scary." Bobajan79 says, "I was accused of throwing a potato at a shed. Totally not true." Apathetic View says, "What is this potato you speak of?" Rabbit_Chocobo says, "Tastes strange." The C0ZMO says, "One day when I was in 5th grade a female collie followed me home from school. I walked around the neighborhood trying to find the owner, but nobody knew whose dog she was. I left my neighborhood and crossed a 4-lane. I carried her so she wouldn't get hit by a car. I didn't own a dog leash. After knocking doors and asking around, I had to go home, but she just kept following me. I picked her back up and carried her back across the 4-lane, put her down, and we walked another block. Then the owner pulled up, stopped in the middle of the intersection, got out of his car, and called her. She ran to him and hopped up in the car. I told him I'd been trying to find her owners for hours. The old bastard said, 'Yeah, someone saw you carrying her,' implying that I stole her. Then he plopped his fat ass back in his Cadillac and sped away. No good deed." Zippered says, "I'm sorry, this said a lot more about the owner than about you." Cyanora says, "That I tried to assault his GF. Not only was there no evidence for it, but everyone in the room, including his GF, told him that he was being an idiot." Misconduct 0120 says, "A college roommate reported me to the campus police for selling drugs. She stated that she was in our dorm room and overheard me selling drugs to another student in the laundry room. Our dorm room was on the 12th floor, laundry room was in the basement of the building. She got pissed when campus police laughed at her statement." Astroon98 says, "Were you selling drugs though?" Misconduct 0120 says, "Lol no. She told a mutual friend that she did it because she was trying to ruin my reputation as she was sick of people liking me more than her. She was batshit crazy." Solid Thought 5544 says, "Being a thief just because of my skin color." Ruwix says, "That must suck. I can't take any more," says, "Little did he know you're a thief regardless of your skin color." 07. Dingo says, "A friend accused me of stealing their phone. I didn't even sit with them. They lost their phone and a friend." r/AskReddit. QWERTY1519 says, "If you could excel beyond measure in just one skill, which would you choose?" Smaltamenosans says, "I'd choose the skill of learning quickly so that I could excel in many different skills." Incurious Log says, "Timing." Throwaway Corsiabvo says, "Learning skills." Wow Hello Hi says, "I would choose to excel in Excel." Rich Stark says, "Patience." Abajando says, "I'd choose the art of persuasion." Just imagine being able to convince anyone to do anything and being a master of negotiation. Ava Beanbag says, knowing stock market trends. When to buy and sell. Make all my money for the day before 8 AM and enjoy the rest of my day. Maintenance Famous 827 says, understanding people. Any_philosopher 4036 says, I would choose to excel in communication. King of Derdeb says, music production. Lily_of_the_deep says, dancing. I love it and I practice, but I'm so uncoordinated I give up and watch others dance instead. Great Day BG2 says, writing. I Had Colonizer says, art. Growth Fart 4353 says, becoming really good at things. Minute_app 7169 says, learning things quickly. Big Bowl 7198 says, learning. Fiorditoya Bizach says, shooting a basketball. Poopman Poop Mouse says, learning skills. IC_assist 3125 says, writing. Slivector Steel 2020 says, I vow to use my powers for good. With that out of the way, I'll take perfect human manipulation skills. The ultimate power. Fuzz_Lord says, probably something like digital art, so that I may make professional propaganda art in support of Western democracy. Super Scario says, languages. Huskerlax says, self-control. TT5B says, guitar. Lazapotatos says, money making skills. Read_at_own_isk says, getting people to do what I want. Don Babito says, fricking. I'm pretty good, but it'd be dope to be the Tiger Woods of fricking. Chingbalan says, listening to these dumb questions on AskReddit. r/AskReddit. Spooky Shatsy says, if you could miniaturize anything and keep it as a pet, what would it be and what would you do together? Modeler Socksman says, an elephant. Normal pet stuff I suppose. Zach the person says, Steve Buscemi. Creepy Instruction 91 says, I would miniaturize a dragon and we would go on epic adventures together. The_Lusankaya says, Taiwan. They have a thriving microprocessor industry, and just think of the advances in computing if they were able to miniaturize further. Also, I could hide it in Washington DC. And then they'd be safe from China. Pabst Blue Ribbon 1844 says, House Hippo. Loved hippos from a young age and used to collect them. The House Hippo commercial made my heart ache of jealousy and desire. Tessa Forecourt says, 2 words, pocket giraffe. KMN 493 says, a cheetah. They are technically not big cats and don't attack people. They can still cause problems due to their size, so simply shrinking them down would negate a lot of the problems like their massive claws or barbed tongue that accidentally makes you bleed when they groom you enough. Make it pock-sized and no problem. Time for Mayo says, Bashar Assad. I'd keep him in a little cage and give him hamster food. Crackpot Jeffrey says, dinosaurs. Ever since Spy Kids that's been my dream. Lissy Lau 12345 says, I would love to have a miniature whale in a fish tank and teach it tricks. I also feel like taking a tiny giraffe for walks would be super cute. Mitachondriacuity says, a hippo so I could have the first real house hippo and make it a Canadian heritage moment I kick. Summon Funiloza says, cow. Gerard Horn says, brown bear. I would fight him. Fi_fi_fo_fun says. A triceratops. Feed it and walk it. Pacific_Northwest says. Blue whale. I'd ride the ever-ending shit out of that miniaturized monster that still spans a horse or two. It'd hump its way back to my neck of the waters every so often to gently whisper whale songs in my ear. This, or redwood trees to keep us bonsai style trees. OK Solution 5010 says. My friends. Outrageous Shine 2923 says. The moon. My own little shining moon. r/AskReddit. Pilaf 237 says. What is the worst thing to malfunction at a critical time? Quirky 18900 says. A condom. Admiral Bofus says. Backup parachute. Meeting Immediate 7744 says. Life support system. Some random user 00 says. Brakes. Had a rubber brake like on my truck burst once. I downshifted to first and went up on the curb into the grass. 423YJL says. Tail rotor. Tired_of_old_mem says. Your sphincter. Back to batch says. The levee system as a major storm surge threatens to cause catastrophic damage. No_development_6786 says. Parachute for skydiving. God Empress says. Brakes when you are driving at a high speed. Albathor_PR says. Landing gear, parachute, brain. Spiritual_review_754 says. Just had to my dick. Freedom Fighter says. A bomb timer. Renerak 123 says. The brain. Eric Asira says. Defibrillator. Pothier M says. From my experience, nothing is more infuriating than the GPS not working when I really need it. Frank Tank says. A nuclear reactor. Badlows 208 says. The failsafe shutdown system on a nuclear reactor. OK Oven 8841 says. Condom. Fasser down in Thagata says. Getaway car. State_bound_247 says. Brakes. BSeemZ says. A lot of my first ideas have been added already, so I'll say fire extinguisher. Croker 843 says. Birth control. You could end up with a parasite that will drain your money and sanity. Meekik says. My brain at an exam. Evangel says. Car brakes. Lethal Mind Ninja says. Bowels. Glittering Design 973 says. Beard trimmer stopped working halfway through getting ready for work. Had to go babyface lol. Wife did not approve. Jason Tonio says. A bomb if you're about to explode Margaret Thatcher. Jargon_file says. A multinational space mission to redirect a large asteroid on a collision course with Earth. Cadent Pack 08 says. The brakes. r/AskReddit. Edmund Hill says. What is the best spoken line in any movie? Wok3 is _Wick third says. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think about whether they should. /drive. Ian Malcolm, Jurassic Park. Feroin86 says. I wish it need not have happened in my time, said Frodo. So do I, said Gandalf, and so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. Lopsided Connection 1 says. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhäuser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Although the original script was also very good, I've known adventures, seen places you people will never see. I've been off-world and back frontiers. I've stood on the back deck of a blinker bound for the Plutician camps with sweat in my eyes watching stars fight on the shoulder of Orion. I've felt wind in my hair, riding test boats off the black galaxies, and seen an attack fleet burn like a match and disappear. I've seen it, felt it. Snipes 138 says. Frick me gently with a chainsaw. Do I look like Mother the Sap? Heathers, 1988. That is Eleni your head says. Go ahead, punk, make my day. Naive_instinct 44 says. The only thing that burns in hell is the part of you that won't let go of life, your memories, your attachments. They burn them all away. But they are not punishing you, he said. They are freeing your soul. So the way he sees it, if you're frightened of dying and you're holding on, you'll see devils tearing your life away. But if you've made your peace, then the devils are really angels. Jacob's Ladder. Spook 7886 says. All men die, not every man truly lives. Raston says. I ain't got time to bleed, the Predator. Yapperoni for Pepperoni says. I'm going to bed before either of you come up with another clever idea to get us killed. Or worse, expelled. Consistent_try 8728 says. Le Grossman in Tropic Thunder, first, take a big step back. And literally, F your own face. I don't know what kind of pan-Pacific bulk power play you're trying to pull here, but Asia is my territory. So whatever you're thinking, you'd better think again. Otherwise I'm gonna have to head down there, and I will rain down in a godly think firestorm upon you. You're gonna have to call the thing United Nations, and get a thing binding resolution, to keep me from thing destroying you. I'm talking about scorched earth, Motherfucker. I will massacre you. I will F you up. r/AskReddit. My Tirtha says. What did you get into after it wasn't cool anymore? Glendon 24 says. Crocs. Narimeo says. I thought Pokemon Geo was kind of clunky when it first came out. A couple years later I had moved to a city and there were a ton of gyms and Pokestops near our apartment. I also was taking the train to work, so I was walking a lot. I usually did a Pokemon Geo lap on my way home after work, and would walk the long way home to hit a bunch of gyms and Pokestops. Viviston says. Rollerblading. It's so fun. Jfonzie says. Collecting CDs. Pipsix says. The biggest habit I've come across is smoking. It used to look very trendy, but now I realize it's not. Looking for astronauts says. I just started playing Pokemon Geo. Walking Carpet 23 says. My wife just got me to start playing Fortnite a few days ago. We do duo runs, or trio with my brother. Eburin_Disu says. 80s and 70s music. Nonsense says. The Larry Sanders Show, right after Gary Shandling passed. Man, Rip Torn, and that was perfect for that role. Ashta the Squid says. 90s Eurodance music. Smaltamenos says. Probably playing Pokemon Go. I started playing it a few months after it was at its peak popularity, but I still found it enjoyable. Shallow Pedantic says. JNCO Jeans and Limp Bizkit. Amma. Any_elderberry_3985 says. I got into DD and Magic, The Gathering. Trailer Park Prepper says. As a kid, any clothing that was fashionable. All I got was hand-me-downs, and from the second-hand store. Turnifoot says. Cross-country mountain biking. Really wish I could have experienced it at its peak in the late 90s/early 2000s. Quills says, playing The Sims. Odd_adhesiveness4804 says, Angry Birds. Digging up the corpses says, smoking, apparently. Dumbest teenager me bought a pack, just so I could get a few 5-minute smoke breaks throughout working my dead-end job. Didn't realize until I was older that it took more time than it gave. Bulky Runa says, rollerblading. It's so fun. Andro_7 says, smashing pumpkins. Heavy_math_816 says, I started knitting. Menage Taj says, GameStop. r/AskReddit. AskReddit says, serious, what is the most unsettling encounter you've ever had with another human being? Zenny says, my bar got robbed. Dudes told us everyone down, we complied, obviously. I wasn't even a little scared. I was down, but had my head up watching everything with fascination. It was sort of exciting. Then one of the robbers made eye contact with me and just stopped what he was doing and stared at me. I took my cue and buried my head in my arms. Everything was so quiet, then I heard his slow steps on the wood floor come right up to me, and while looking down I saw his feet on each side of my head, standing right over me. All I could think is that this frick is going to shoot me in the back of the head. It sucked so bad. I don't know how long he stood there, probably only 10 seconds, but it felt like 5 minutes. Shiver, regardless of the cringe posts I make, believe it or not. He didn't shoot me. ZB_ says, I walked in to pay for my petrol. It was me, a young cashier, and this guy. He just started talking to me and kept asking weird questions. I couldn't tell you why, but he made my hair stand on edge. It was clear he wasn't within his right mind, and he wouldn't let me leave the store. After about 10 minutes of talking about the most random things, he just decides to leave the store. 30 minutes later he was dead shot by police, very rare in my country, as he went to police station and tried to shoot them. I only knew that as he made the news they showed the mugshot from previous arrest. Werner Dracow says, when I was around the age of 6 or 7, I can't recall correctly, we went to a small pet shop frequently because my mom fed the strays around. The guy that owned the store was accompanied by a neighbor that kept him company as he was alone, and it was a small store in a neighborhood. Now that guy gave me the chills. There was something in his smile, in his crooked teeth, that made me not wanting to be near him. He would try to chat with me innocently, but I was very shy, so I wouldn't answer and went around looking at the fish tanks and the pet bunnies, but as expected he would show up and make comments about them. Now my mom didn't get any bad vibes from him, as he would also chat with her about the animals she takes care of, etc. One day we visit the store, the owner approaches my mom and talks to her privately. Apparently he apologized to her for letting that man being near me, as he was arrested for sexually harassing a slightly older girl in the neighborhood. The guy was a pedophile and was found out he was trying to groom lots of kids in the neighborhood, especially sometimes when they entered the store and the pedo was by himself in the store. Can't believe that my 6-year-old gut sense was right, lol. Budget Bot Macintosh says, I had a guy pull a knife on me outside of a bar. I managed to twist his arm back and trip him when he slashed at me. The knife punctured his back just a bit, but at the time I thought I killed him. He was rolling around on the ground bleeding and flailing. His buddy grabbed the knife and walked away while I tried to calm him down and hold pressure on the wound. After a few minutes he struggled loose and just walked away. He was fine. I threw up about a minute later. Saw the guy about a month after that, and he wouldn't make eye contact. That whole thing sucked. Alpharot says, some woman screaming obscenities at me while at a hotel in Nashville. I was visiting my girlfriend at the time, who was in college. I don't know why she was so mad at me. Fort Jeek says, in early 1994, I was working an evening shift alone in a convenience store. Paul Hill came into the store. Hill was one of the clinic protesters in town. He kept to himself, carrying big apocalyptic signs and walking back and forth. I volunteered at the clinics to keep those weasels from harassing patients and staff, so I didn't really see a difference between him and the rest. But I'd heard chatter that the other protesters were afraid of him. Understandable. Here he is in my store, at the counter, quietly pleasant as he pays for his items, and all the while I'm freezing. I've rarely had someone scare me, but this frick set off all those little inner alarms. He had that preacher look, the haircut, the boyish face, but over 6 feet tall, about a head taller than me. It was a relief when he left, like I could breathe again. I don't know if he was actually just a customer, or if he was scoping me out. I'd had some of them roll past my house, had my car vandalized. Those didn't scare me, and I doubt he had anything to do with it. Several months passed. On July 29, 1994, Paul Hill ambushed and murdered my friend Jim Berriton Drive. John Britton in the driveway of one of the clinics. Blasted each of them with a shotgun. r/AskReddit. Basic Basket 1006 says, where do you get your motivation and energy from? Ilfir says, knowledge that if I stop for a day, that I will fall into debt and die alone on the street. I hate capitalism. Lucy Viali says, pure stubbornness. U11 Never KN0W says, my burning desire to not be hungry or homeless. Piggy Smalls _ says, coffee. Specialist _ young 1350 says, I get my motivation from setting goals and keeping a positive attitude. Haven Lahirani says, motivation comes from not wanting to rot away in bed. Energy, coffee and naps. Handsome Rooster says, if you're always searching for motivation to do things you don't want to do, you're always going to come up short. Having the discipline to do the things you don't want to do every time until they become habits is the best way I've found to stick with a new hobby / task / routine. Let's face it, you're not going to want to wake up at 6 AM and go to the gym 4 days a week. Though, if you do it often enough, through discipline, it'll get easier and easier. Motivation will switch on after you see the progress towards your goals, and you'll be stoked and keep going. Just force yourself to do it. Motivation will come later. Fat Gua Dave 89 says, my wife and daughter. I'm lucky enough to have Bumble, ed my way into a career where I can afford to be the sole provider. However, when that alarm goes off at 4:30 AM and I hate life for a few minutes, I think about how I'm allowing my daughter to grow up being raised by the greatest woman I know instead of strangers at a daycare. Not that there is anything wrong with that. I love that little girl more than anything in the world, and I can't wait to meet her little brother in a few months. Away Company says, sleep, food and money. Tropical Godzilla says, no. Atul Rab says, sleep, food and money. Trailer Park Prepper says, coffee and knowing that I got shit to do. George Jorgensen says, I'll let you know when I get either one. Plasma _ Dan says, 8 hours of sleep a night. Dunno what to put so high says, I don't. Most days are an endless struggle waiting for the inevitable end. Missican American says, sheer spite, proving I can do the things I was told I couldn't do. Also Foling XR. I have a Zombina says, being able to come home after work to see a beautiful woman and smoke some weed and have a beer. Being able to relax and forget about work bullshit is what I look forward to. Ryth and Pull Trigger says, Adderall 25 mg XR. Farah Hope says, I'm sorry, what do those two words mean? All I know is sleep and find ways to not sleep when I don't want to sleep. r/AskReddit. Deviant55 says, what do most people fail to understand about depression and the individuals that suffer from it? Jim Abaddon says, I've noticed some seem to think it's like a perpetual feeling, so if we laugh once we are actually fine. They don't understand the main feeling of emptiness comes and goes, and it manifests as something more complex rather than just be unable to laugh or feel some happiness at times. Pale_currency_134 says, getting out of it isn't a matter of willpower. If you think it is, you have never experienced depression. Akos says, my depression looks different all the time. Sometimes it's active feelings of self-hatred and hopelessness, and sometimes it's just fatigue. Some days I'm actually fine, but I can't remember ever feeling happy for longer than a couple of hours. If I'm having a good time, it's usually just me feeling not sad. I just twantfan001 says, it can come and go as it pleases. It's a big, in dark cloud that descends. It's not just a bit sad. Sometimes I don't wanna get up and do anything at all. You telling me oh don't be lazy don't help matters. No smiling does not help me feel better. Jucky Line says, it's not laziness. Telling people with depression to just exercise and smile more is not a cure or helpful. Being depressed does not mean you can't sometimes smile or laugh. Playing video games, doing art or whatever one likes doing, does not mean we have the energy to shower, go for a walk, etc. Angry_old_dude says, the fact that depression isn't always obvious to others. People are good at hiding things, and depression doesn't always show up in ways the average person thinks are signs of depression. Only Attitude 3456 says, there are different types of depression, but mostly clinical and situational. Clinical is your wiring in your brain. It happens and you can't help it. You feel worthless, like you don't deserve happiness or enjoyment. You're constantly tired but don't sleep. Your appetite suffers, and there is just a black cloud following you. Situational depression after a life event. Death of a loved one, relationship breakdown etc. and will usually be temporary but not always. Adnesu says, we don't feel sadness, we feel nothing. Indigo Neutrino says, finding the right medication to treat it can be hard, and the wrong one can do a lot more harm than good. Same goes for types of therapy. Silver Passage 72 says, I've noticed that some people like to keep depression. People who are well off and have their shit together can absolutely be depressed. Zelau City Lad 1783 says, depression is a complex mental health disorder that is often misunderstood by many people. Here are some things that people fail to understand in my opinion. 1. Depression is not a choice. People with depression do not choose to feel the way they do. It's a medical condition that results from a combination of genetic, environmental, and biological factors. 2. Depression is not just sadness. While sadness is a symptom of depression, there are many other symptoms that can affect a person's life, including feelings of hopelessness, worthlessness, loss of interest in activities, and difficulty sleeping and concentrating. 3. Depression is not a sign of weakness. Many people with depression often feel ashamed or embarrassed about their condition. However, depression is not a sign of weakness or a personal failure. It is a treatable illness, and seeking help is a sign of strength. 4. Depression is not the same for everyone. Depression symptoms can vary widely from person to person. Some people may experience more physical symptoms, while others may struggle with more emotional symptoms. r/AskReddit. Dant_9810 says, what behavior screams that you're in a toxic workplace? Heavenly Hirani says, Being quiet when certain people enter the office. Feeling absolute relief when the clock hit 5. Worrying about work the night before. Happy_set_9005 says, when your worth isn't recognized and criticism is a constant instead of constructive feedback. The Brass Dancer says, micromanagement of employees. A refusal to adapt to change. Cutting corners, especially regarding safety, to penny pinch. Sycophantic behavior. Nepotism. Half_past_5 says, 1 point working. Many hours overtime each week is expected, even though you are salary. 2 point management. Expecting you to be available for emergencies, no matter the time. Even if you are on PTO. 3 point giving. You mediocre performance reviews, even though they praise you, and don't have any feedback on how to get a higher score. They state it's just normal to give an average rating. 4 point management. Leans heavily on the high performers to pick up slack for the workers who are extremely lazy and never do much. Instead of addressing the issue, they expect you to work harder to make up for it so the entire team doesn't fail. Just a few I've experienced in my career in it so far. Carisco says, when you're crying on your way to work. Safiya Gertklus at 854 says, the overuse of the word culture. DW87190 says, screaming, usually but for a more serious answer, gossip, especially if a boss complains about someone, but never takes the issue up with whom they have the problem, any workplace relationship, or hooking that's management/subordinate, gender promotion quotas or anything else that goes against meritocracy, the dreaded we're a family here, 10% of the staff doing 90% of the work. Snoobunners90-21 says, when you are excited to spend your Sunday having fun or doing nothing but you start dreading from 3 PM to 8 PM on Sunday, cause you know you have work the next day. Rip1980 says, OSHA mandated signs about toxicity. No_chapter_948 says, when favorism is definitely showing brightly towards others and not all. Dual Online 1981 says, 1. Coworkers asking you for favors and denying every request when you ask for help. 2. Being unpaid for days you'd normally be working THSG the company decides to close. 3. Not providing a concise chain of command. 4. Lack of recognition or praise. Davos Lost Fingers says, getting changed into appropriate PPE before going into SEP and continuing to the nuclear waste processing facility to conduct a survey. That was my experience anyway. r/AskReddit. Bronzeheart92 says, which video game disturbed you as a kid? Upstairs Paper 2079 says, Majora's Mask. Covered in Sheets says, not the video game, but the original's barks noises, especially when the display went red and sounded like a demon possession. JSmooth42 says, Manhunt. Ransom0374 says, the password music for Battle of Olympus for Northeast spook me. Mazzo_TGN says, Alone in the Dark, the first and the only. That shit, frick, head with my brain. Fincher Funk says, Resident Evil Ion NGC. The first scene with the zombie eating a guy still causes shivers. Civil Wrongdoer 9621 says, Silent Hill, the sound of the siren still gives me chills. B06_content says, the creepy underground dead guys from Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time scared the absolute piss out of me. Paramedic 730 says, Metal Gear Solid 2, where you're at the end of the game and the AI goes buggy and starts spouting strange lines, freaked me the frick out. Esplatinium says, good question. I used to play flash games a lot when I was a kid, and once there was a game that started with really simple puzzles, and on third stage suddenly, while solving the puzzle, a giant bleeding eye appeared with screaming noise. That game hunted my nightmares for months. ArG3483 says, the psychic Lovecraftian horror, that is Genova in FF7, creeped me out. Witletus42 says, Vice City with the chainsaw. French Sprinkler says, FEAR. Overall, but the nightmares from Maximum Pain 1 were worse. Funkamonk7 says, Parasite Eve on the PS1. I would watch my older brother play it, and that shit was scary. One scene that I vividly remember was a rat turning into a zombie monster rat, its mouth ripping open and a meat creature underneath would rip and stretch out of the rat skin / fur. I didn't mean to be, says Superman 64, like, how do I suck this bad all of a sudden? Noth Kingway 123 says, when I try to download Majora's Mask for my N64 emulator in my phone instead of the room, the link downloaded a porn video. So Majora's Mask. Fuzz_Lord says, that gloomy galleon level from DK64. It to this day is my absolute least favorite level because of how much it and the cutscene for the boss disturbs me. So glad I should never have a reason at this point to play that cursed level ever again. N0 Nameboy says, okay, I know this sounds dumb, but Viva Pinata for the DS. Specifically the Sour Pinatas, their designs were just terrifying, and they randomly appeared mostly at night, and sometimes in the day too. No time was safe. The sherbet slow walking with its wings stretched out, the crowler that the game itself describes as looking like a bear trap, the Profitimole with its giant gaping cavernous maw full of massive teeth that took up most of its head. All of them trying to eat my beloved Pinata I'd spent hours raising and romancing. The suddenness of their appearance was what really scared me though. They just materialized on a corner of the map and the scare chord would suddenly echo and the horrible music would start up before you even realize the horrid thing was there. First time you see one, the game briefly explains it's here to kill your Pinatas and ruin your garden. Get rid of it as fast as you can. Then leaves you to panic and figure out what to do. Oh, you got one type to permanently leave by purifying it and getting an item that repels future individuals of that species? Well, if you level up again, you get a new type haunting your garden that you'll have to scramble to get the right supplies to. r/AskReddit. Casseted_Amentum says, if you were writing an autobiography, what would your opening sentence be? Bob Dave says, my birth was announced with notices in 2 English local newspapers. It was the Bicester Times. It was the Worcester Times. Captain Findus says, I was a baby when I was born. Peary Arizona says, the depression was crippling, as was the cringe. Viking_hippie says, so I was chilling out in this super comfortable uterus when suddenly. Trailer Park Prepper says, just because my parents wanted to, frick, back in 1964, I'm stuck here cleaning up everyone's frick ups. Feral Pixel says, I've written hundreds of stories before this. Each one a fictional escape, where the main character is as different from me as I can possibly make them. This one's different, I guess. Egnard says, you're probably wondering how I got myself to this point. Record scratching noises rewind, wait, I think that only works in the movies. Oh well, let's start over, you might as well turn the page, this is about to get awkward. Reasonable Explorer says, it wasn't always this bad. Duaba23 says, well, if you found this autobiography, I'm not well, and I'm not alive. Affectionate Cow 6369 says, I banged my toe off a chair. It was at this moment I knew that I would make my first NFT investment. Viridian Kumquat says, Well, here I am, writing an autobiography. NKRNRNK says, as I emerged from my mother's womb, I knew I was destined for greatness, or at least great mediocrity. Back to Batch says, my life story begins as I near the end, giving away my considerable estate to those in need, while making arrangements for cremation and burial of cremains with a newly planted tree in a nearby nature preserve. Walruses _or_ while Riai says, everyone likes the guy in the office who offers you a stick of gum. Out in Daban says, for those of you who thought I was dead, I'm not. Primal _machine _22109 says, I was born, it's not important when, unless you're into astrology, in which case this isn't the book for you. Coprolite _hobbyist says, you're never going to believe this shit. Dr. Mux says, record scratch, yeah, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. Baby Alibi says, I will never tell you where I hid the bodies, but I will tell you a little more about myself. Dwell Online 1981 says, I don't know why you're reading this. I don't know if it'll be a good time, or if you'll wonder how I'm still here. r/AskReddit. Hadrian23 says, what's with the sudden uptick of OnlyFans bot accounts following people on Reddit, and has this always been happening? Joe Morg says, the algorithm knows where the horny 13 years old are at. Next questions. Hadrian23 says, big edit, if you don't want to get any more followers from OF, you'll want to turn off the ability for people to follow you. Go to settings, profile, and under profile uncheck allow people to follow you. This will get rid of it altogether. Unfortunately Reddit is locked down hella tight, and their API doesn't allow for much in the way of masses blocks, so Reese is your best bet if you wanna get something somewhat close, but if you don't care and want them to go away, then simply turn off follows altogether. Crank Old Hag 45 says, you answered your own question. They're bots and infiltrate every site. I just had some dude offer me money via WhatsApp lol. Noeman 136 says, honestly haven't noticed. Who follows people on Reddit? Cuck Fatey says, how do you even know if someone is following you? A fake no one is following me. I see you replied elsewhere that it's been happening to older accounts. Mine 7 years, technically 6 since I lurked my first year. But like I said, it's not been an issue for me. Excusetheblood says, I've been getting it here and on IG. Doctor Who says, unfortunately, you can't report them, but you can block them. In some ways, I miss the people who try to chat me up first. Danger Squirrel 442 says, no worries, every time you get a notification that an my bad, Instabot is now following you, just block them. r/AskReddit. KXMZS says, if you didn't have to work or pay bills, what would you be doing? Pocketba says, traveling the country in a motorhome, spending time with nature. Not_Jim3 says, probably something similar with fewer hours and less responsibilities. KeyZ says, seizing the means of production. Aberon says, spending more time with friends and family in nature, spending more time with my aging parents and grandmother, caring for my local community, being involved in local politics for things like better transit, assisting the unhoused, education, and redo zoning, working on projects with neighbors like gardens and fixing things, and volunteering for local events, care more for my own health, more exercise, more time to cook nutritional meals. Kitten Laserfist says, hanging out with my cats, visiting friends, trying new hobbies, and traveling occasionally. Any_philosopher 4036 says, I would travel the world and experience different cultures. New Girl NSFW says, Taking care of family more. Strinthawk says, maybe 12 to 18 hours a week at programming, but instead of working for a single corporation I would work on open source software and any organization that needs my help. Paint and draw more. Maybe I would cook for the local community, since I really like cooking too. Icom Coffee says, staying with my family. Skiz Bouncer says, would invest in inner city programs. Half the population is in major cities. Why not help half the population? Jaded Bet 7933 says, I've had this goal to become a foster parent for some time now. I haven't pursued it because I want to make sure that I wouldn't put a child already in a stressful situation into an even more stressful one. I.e., I would like a bigger place and more time to focus on said child, Ren. Julia_and Raid says, absolutely nothing without the guilt of doing absolutely nothing. LM 521134 says, like the ancient Chinese Tao Yu and Ming, picking chrysanthemums under the eastern fence and leisurely seeing the days of the southern mountains. Account is taken says, chilling, playing video games, raising my daughter, outings, swimming lessons etc. is what I do day by day now, since my wife earns enough for the both of us. Watson3 says, doing humanitarian missions and volunteering with animals. Maleficent Winter 187 says, attending college for fun. Not caring about my grade, working jobs until I'm sick of them and then quitting. Spending all my free time with my son. r/AskReddit. RC Thakut says, what is something that you recommend everyone should start doing to improve their life? Streak_free_shine says, brush your teeth at least once a day. Norman_Bates says, lol, I like how low your expectations are. Moded4thuin says, start going on walks and having earphones and enjoy the scenery, enjoy the fact you have woken up one more morning. Do Monster says, don't procrastinate, do the thing and look after the future you. No Definition 3960 says, start making time for self-care and prioritize your mental health. RC Thakut says, my recommendation is to drink more water. This is really common and most people already know this, but don't really listen. Dehydration is a serious issue. I almost passed out at work a week ago because I wasn't drinking enough water. Don't just drink whenever you feel thirsty. Carry around a water bottle, take a sip every once in a while. It will make you feel so much better. Also, start eating healthier. Methoda Kinsley P says, make lists, stuff to do when you're bored, clean, try a recipe, etc. Stuff to do after/before work, and don't just make them, get into the habit of checking them. And on the topic of cleaning, don't save it all for one day a week, clean little by little every day as you walk through your house. If you're cooking something, clean while the dish is in the oven or fridge or setting, or whatever. It makes things so much easier. N_Croft says, working out consistently, following a healthy diet, staying hydrated, having quality sleep, maintaining a good personal hygiene, removing yourself from any situation that you do not enjoy if possible, and spending time with yourself doing things that you love. Top Shelf Crazy says, vitamin B12, C and D supplements, as my nutritionist likes to say, just give you really expensive pee, but if that's the best you can manage then at least you'll still be getting something from them. A Hermit 007 says, take a break from alcohol for a few months. Swollen_feet says, stop answering questions on AskReddit. Narcissistic_smirk says, the opposite of whatever I'm doing. Goldap 310 says, less social media, more real interactions. Silent underscore relation underscore 8666 says. Scrub your feet. Heady Hollow says. Self-compassion. Modern life is stressful and everyone has gone through something heartbreaking or traumatizing at least once. Sikau says. Stop living just to work and try to find balance between what you have to do and what you'd like to do. r/AskReddit. Initiative Guilty 3149 says. How do you know when a relationship is over? Junior underscore O underscore 3589 says. When they seem distant from you, or they just seem angry about something, but they keep saying it's nothing. That's because the thing that's bothering them is you. Mr. Pandabot 35 says. As soon as you end the fights with whatever they want to hear, because you know it's not worth your time. Amethinus says. When seeing them is no longer enough to make you smile, either go to couples therapy or end it. Everything gets worse in limbo. Mewjigger 11,998,823 says. When you look forward to not being around your partner vs looking forward to being with them. Surrealistic says. When one side lacks effort. Joel Shuck says. Her new boyfriend will let you know. Holy Carbohydrates says. If you have to ask then you know. Squawf 522 says. Apathy. Delightful underscore day 53 says. When you hear the key in the lock and a feeling of dread overcomes you. Poliwa says. When the thought of being around them stresses you out. Hope this helps 90 says. For me, in retrospect, it was over in 2 weeks. That's when the gaslighting began. Yet, I bought into it for 9 months after. 8 years later, I'm still messed up from it. So I guess my best answer is you don't, until it's over. Then, in retrospect you, unhealthily, have the time to yourself to dissect all the red flags that you once saw through rose-colored glasses. Some random user 00 says. When you don't miss the person, when you're not together for more than a day or two. I work out of town often, and every time I miss my wife. Alarmed Mirror 3911 says. When one cries and the other one doesn't. Revels 0k says. When you ask Reddit. Another underscore day underscore in says. You feel it. That's enough. I underscore want underscore oral underscore please says. Communication and or the need to speak with someone. Response times. Conversation indicators like yeah, no, I have things to do, maybe, probably not. Fit underscore mountain underscore 6320 says. When you're more in love with the memories than the person that's in front of you. Square 3481 says. If you find yourself dreading going home and would rather stay late at work. Edit, dreading. Dimple underscore from underscore yat says. When one of you realize you are interested in other people. You can fight etc. But if you're still loyal to each other. It means you're still devoted and happy with each other. But even if you say I love you to a partner, but your heart is with another person. Or their heart is with another person. You know for a fact. Your relationship is over. I learned what a relationship should be like with my husband. My husband, despite our arguments, at the end always told me he loved me and would say, I'm afraid to lose you. We could blindly trust each other. Whereas with my exes, I had exes that were so amazing to me. In bed in my face. But never confirmed they loved me. Then behind my back were sleeping with other women. I always had to play guessing games. When you don't have to play guessing games, you know your relationship is rock solid. The minute you're second guessing everything, your relationship is over. r/AskReddit. Random Pandalol says. What are good hobbies to start in your 20s? Thesis in therapist says. Learning to play retirement home bingo. Seriously though, 20s is still so young that you can start literally any hobby. Padlaska says. Walking. It's really easy to get a few walks in your day. It's incredible for your mental and physical health. Helps you discover your neighborhood, town, or city. Tiny Fugue says. Learn a language or to play an instrument. I picked up a cheap, entry-level saxophone for a couple $100 a few years ago. I don't play well, nor do I ever expect to do so, but I have no regrets. My dog loves it. When I practice playing, he views it as a chance for the pack to get together and howl. Cater_the_turtle says. Working out and or finding a sport that you enjoy playing regularly. Meg_+2 says. I crochet. I already knew how, but really started in my 20s. I'm 36 now and find it so relaxing to do. It also helps me cut back on mindless eating when watching TV. I enjoy making these really intricate Lassie vintage looking baby blankets for all my friends that are expecting. Commercial Draw 76 says. Tabletop wargaming. Politely Enchanting says. Martial arts. I'm learning Krav Maga and Jiu-Jitsu. Bleakly Unfortunate says. Gardening is probably the most enjoyable hobby I've taken a liking to in my early 20s. I always adored my grandma's garden. It was a two-tiered garden and she cared for it meticulously. So much green, so many beautiful flowers in a rainbow of colors. So having my own house I kinda felt like it demanded me take some time to beautify it the best I could. Heretic says. Anything that promotes exercise. Spuds Mackenzie says. Any athletic hobbies. You're in your physical prime and can achieve the highest heights you'll ever be physically capable of. Then if you can maintain that athleticism you'll have more solid foundation than anyone who starts that sport/hobby later in life. BKDDY says. Bodybuilding. Once you build a good base of muscle mass, you'll be able to hold on to it for a long time. Political Activist says. Woodworking. It's quiet enough to work on in an apt and most of the hand tools are quite small and affordably. The added bonus is, if you really fall in love with the craft, you'll still be young enough to make a career out of it. BBB_707 says. I picked up cooking in my early 20s and it made my life better in a lot of ways. When you go from cooking just to survive to cooking with purpose, it changes from something you have to do into something you want to do. For me, cooking is something I do most nights, and it gives me an hour or so where I can listen to my music and focus on something that isn't work or life stress. I find it meditative in a way. Lots of extrinsic benefits too. Being a good cook might mean eating more, but it also means you eat less junk food. Being a good cook impresses a partner and makes you popular at family holidays. Also, as someone who had minimal disposable income in my 20s, cooking is a hobby that can actually save you money. When you get good enough that you trust yourself to make tasty food, you can make groceries go a long way. Buy less to eat and have more leftovers for lunch at work. That's all for this video. Was it good? I know not, for I'm a robot. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. This video is the product of an automated process.